So, welcome everyone. Welcome to, or perhaps welcome back to episode 2 of Digital Marketing for Busy People. Today we'll be focusing on building a website, that kind of second stage in the process, where a couple of weeks ago we focused on SEO and getting found online. So I suppose that the first stage is getting found online. The second stage is having a website that really helps you turn those people who are interested into people who are going to reach out to you, to turn that potential interest into someone who really could be a client for you. And of course, our final episode in a couple of weeks, in a partnership with Lottie, the wonderful marketplace for care, we'll be looking at how to kind of build your pricing strategy and communicate that kind of final stage of the process. But a little bit of housekeeping, but before we really get into things, just to let you know, we're recording this session today, and we'll get that recording to you today or tomorrow, so you have it for reference. We'll share a follow-up with a couple of extra resources, including a really useful checklist that we'll be talking about later. And finally, please do pop your questions straight into the Q&A function here. You can pop them directly into the chat, and we'll capture them as questions too. Wonderful. So let me introduce ourselves. So hello, my name is Simran. I'm the content and community lead here at Birdie. That means I look after all kinds of our digital content and also our platform Flock, more about which later. I'm really glad to be here with Alfie Jones, who's the managing director and the founder of Kahoot Marketing. Alfie, would you like to introduce yourself and speak a little on Kahoot?
Yeah, great. Thank you, Simran. Thanks so much for having me on, and thank you to Birdie as well for inviting me. Um, yeah, my name's Alfie Jones. As it says there, I'm the managing director of Kahoot Marketing. And yeah, we provide marketing exclusively for the UK care sector, home care, care homes, retirement villages, everything care related, everything from websites to social media to everything else. Yeah, just for the care sector.
Brilliant, thank you so much. And let me briefly introduce who we are at Birdie as well, just in case you haven't heard of us. The way we see it is that things are getting harder and harder in the care sector, as they have for a long time, and that when you can't work any harder, what you've got to do is work smarter. And we're here to try and make that as easy as we can, as easy as it can be. We know that technology isn't always your friend in working smarter. Like, we know that things started with paper. There's that kind of first generation of care software that basically turned paper into something on your screen. We're trying to build something that is that gives you a little bit more. That isn't just paper on the screen, but is really smart technology that makes your life as easy as it can possibly be. Which may not be that easy, but may at least be a little bit easier. Um, we think there's a few key pillars to that. We want to get everything working together, make sure you can see everything from one place, and that you really have some sense of community. We're always here. Our support team are an absolutely fantastic group of people, and we also offer spaces like Flock, a real community where you can connect with other people who work across the care sector, whether you happen to be using Birdie or not. We'll share a link to learn a little bit more about Flock in the chat shortly. Wonderful. So we have our kind of 5 products, 3 apps, and 3 big promises. But you know what? If you're interested in learning more about this, you can reach out to our team. We'll also pop a link in the chat for you to do that, or you can just respond to any of the emails that we've sent through to you. But why are we here? So we are here to help you build a website that actually convinces new clients. Let's dive straight in. Alfie, let's talk about tip 1.
Thanks, Simran. So yeah, the first thing I want to talk about is marketing has to be integrated in order to work. So your offline and online marketing has to work together. What that means is anything digital has to work offline, anything offline has to work digitally on your website as well. What does that look like? So at a very basic level, that just means having the same language, the same images if you can, so that when somebody sees a flyer or a piece of print material or a brochure and they come on the website, not only does it look and feel the same, but it's the same language and it's the same pictures. There's real consistency between online and offline. So that's a very straightforward example of how to integrate your online and offline marketing. But there's kind of I mean, slightly more advanced things like having QR codes on your leaflets so that you can track when people have read your leaflet and they go to the website. Otherwise, you might see a spike in website traffic when you leaflet, but you've got no way of attributing that traffic to the money you've spent on leaflets. So you don't know if your marketing's actually working. Whereas if you're tracking it with something like a QR code, then you've got an idea of how to do it. And another thing you can do with QR code, if you wanted to, you could instead use that QR code to send people to WhatsApp. So you go straight from the leaflet to a dialogue, which is much better than an email, because you know that's transactional. Whereas a dialogue, if you're talking to somebody on WhatsApp immediately, that's transactional. So you're already starting the dialogue and the conversation, which is much, much better and much, much quicker, especially when we think about the nature of care and how quickly people need help. They've probably got a problem right now. Maybe 70-80% of people will have a sort of pants on fire situation rather than, oh, I'm thinking about this for future. So important to have that quick response. Yeah, so we've talked about key message, QR codes, and things like local events as well. So integrating in the local community, making sure that the message that comes out of your team's mouths is the same as the message that's on the website. And I think broadly that's the main points I wanted to cover with this one. We've got a lot of other juicy stuff to go through, so I might stop there for the online
Totally.
offline integration.
That's really really interesting, Alfie, and thank you for that. So I guess like just to reflect that back, you're saying that one really simple thing you could do is make some kind of flyer that looks similar enough to your website, and then distribute that flyer wherever it might be around in the area that you service, anywhere that'll take those flyers, be it like the post
Yeah.
office, or a cafe that has space up on the walls or something else. I wonder if you could tell us a little bit more. I mean, some people might be really familiar with QR codes. I know that sometimes it feels like you have to use them nowadays just to like order a bit of food at a restaurant. But could you tell us a bit more about like really just the like mechanics of like how you would set up a QR code, like what that tracking would really be, if that's something that someone hadn't done before?
Yeah, sure. So sorry, I sometimes live in the world of marketing and forget that people don't live in my brain. So if you've not dealt with QR codes before, there's 101 online QR code makers. If you search QR code maker on Google, it'll come up and you can create a QR code, and that will create the little image that you can drop into your flyer. So that's kind of your first step. And it's interesting because post sort of COVID, it's the norm now to use QR codes. It's kind of like, is it going to work? Is it not going to work? But pretty much most, and you think about the demographic as well. It would be my assumption sometimes to think that maybe the demographic we're targeting wouldn't use QR codes, but it is becoming the norm now. Pretty much most people can get out a phone, use the camera on their phone, and click the link. And to do that and go straight to WhatsApp is a very, very smart and quick way to do marketing. So if someone sees a flyer, they get out their phone, they're having a WhatsApp conversation with you without even having to type in the number. So you're making it as quick as possible. You talk about automation and making things seamless at Birdie. This is another way that people can save time and make their marketing seamless.
That's really, really interesting. I feel like sometimes it can seem like tech complicates things and that all these ideas like QR codes and tracking and direct to WhatsApp, but in the end, we're actually talking about kind of making things just like as simple as we can, and so that for someone to message you, like you said, you don't even have to like when you meet someone and you have to like put their number into your phone and then you have to send them like, oh, we did a missed call, or like then you have to look for it in your contacts in the WhatsApp. I think there is actually a better way to do it. I think WhatsApp has its own QR codes, which I need to learn how to use. But I think this makes so much sense. What we'll make sure to do as well is send through in our kind of follow-up resources. Everyone will get these slides and we'll get some kind of further details, some links to some of these tools where it's literally as simple as like putting in the WhatsApp phone number into the tool and it'll like print out a link or it'll print out a code for you to stick on your flyer. It can sound so like like multi-layered until you've given it a go, and so often all you need is that right link that just takes you to the place that sorts it out for you. But wonderful. Let me not delay us anymore. Alfie, tip number two, please.
So I've got a checklist. I won't go through everything because it's going to be sent out after the webinar, but there's a checklist of things. So I've worked in websites for over 15 years, and I spot things I can't help. Going online for me is a nightmare because I spot 101 things that are wrong or inconsistent, or I get a bit focused on it. So yeah, I think I'm going to start with the big one. So the three kind of key mistakes. Actually, can we jump ahead one slide and I'll just run through the three mistakes first, and then we'll jump back. Sorry. So the big mistakes that people do with making websites is they use scrolling banners or lots of moving things. Like video is okay, ambient video, because it's dynamic and it shows something of you're kind of showcasing the feel, the look and feel and the culture. But a lot of the time people use scrolling static images. And the reason I recommend against this is because it takes away control from the user. If you're scrolling a website and something's moving, you don't have control over it, and it's content you want to look at, that's bad user experience, which Google doesn't like and users don't like. So avoid scrolling banners if you can. What they're very good for is appeasing multiple stakeholders who I want this on the front of the website, I also want this, I want something else on the front of the website. But the problem is only the first banner gets seen. So we have to be concise and decisive about what we show in that first bit, which we'll go into in a second. The other big mistake is designing for desktop first. So 60% of your traffic in 2025, 2026 is going to be from mobile. So you want to design for mobile first, or at least have them designed simultaneously, because most of your traffic will be coming from mobile. People sat around on their phones, sharing websites on WhatsApp and talking about care for their family. So it has to look well on phones. And the big mistake a lot of companies make, especially smaller companies that are starting out that want to look bigger, which is never a good idea because you give away your USP as a small company once you start looking like a big corporation. It's a USP that you're small, family based, if that's the kind of business you are. But you want to avoid clutter. So really, you only want 5 or 6 main messages on the navigation. So you don't really want to have any clutter there. So you want to keep it as clear as possible. One of the worst mistakes you can make building a website is having a drop-down box with like 15 different options. Unless you really, really need it, you're a very large company and it just serves the purpose of the user experience and you're dealing with that. It doesn't make sense to do that until that point. So let's have a look now at the home page and what should be at the top of the home page. And if we can jump back to this slide. So just going to show off our own website here for a second. So this is Kahoot's website. One of the things you'll notice is that there is a logo row at the bottom and there's some information. We call them trust seals. This is just icons, logos that immediately at a glance show authority. It's very easy to add these. You don't necessarily need to pay any money. For example, there's no, I don't think the joining fee for things like Dementia Friends, Alzheimer's Association. These logos, if you are working in the sector and you are aware of these organisations and you adhere to these standards, you can just put those logos there. The CQC logo, for example, you know that everyone is registered with the CQC. Your audience may not know this, so they're just looking for authority. They're looking to trust you. So these logos are very important. They do the job of showing authority rather than having a lot of words and saying we're brilliant. You're showing with the icons. We've worked with these people. This is what we do. We're well rated. These are our partners. It just shows, it builds trust very quickly. And of course, trust is very important in this sector because we're making decisions based on a lot of trust. The other thing you'll notice is the navigation is very clear. So there's actually only 4 main navigation sections on our website, and there's a clear call to action as well on the top right for contact us, and then a clear call to action below the main text that says show me more. So this is really important because you don't want to give people lots of information on a website and then not tell them what to do next. You need to kind of guide them on a journey through the website, and that starts with things called calls to action, which is just a button at the top right. And as a care business, probably you want your main phone number top right so that people can contact you directly. So, and there's all kinds of ways of designing websites, but Google has trained us now to expect certain things. So I'd really advise to just have the logo top left and the call to action top right, because that's where people look and expect these things to be. So we don't, there's lots of different creative ways you can do it, but we don't want to reinvent the wheel unless we've got a really good reason to. The other thing is it has to pass the caveman test, which means do I know what you do? So at the top of the website, we've got "We take care of your marketing." It's very clear what we do. We do marketing, and then it talks about the sector we work in as well. So we want to use clear features and benefits copy, use you, your, yours language. We can often talk about how great we are as a service, but we want to talk about the benefit to you as a service user, as a client, what's in it for you. If we don't clearly explain that right at the start, we miss the opportunity, maybe the only opportunity we have. And then in that initial segment at the top of the website, we also want to have your what we call a USP, or unique selling point. That just means what makes you different from the care agency down the road. What differentiates you? Make sure that's clear. And also what wasn't shown there, which is just below the fold, as it's called, just off screen, is a testimonial as well. So an emotionally impactful testimonial from one of your clients. It's a real testimonial that makes an impact, that shows authority as well. Because again, you can say we're a great service, but it's much better to have one of your clients saying at the top of the website, "This is a great service. They feel like family to me. My dad's so happy now with this service." That speaks so much more than anything else you can put. So, and then the reason I showed those two images of the main website and then the mobile side by side, if we can skip back to it for a second, is because it must be responsive. So it must appear well, regardless of whether you're viewing it on a desktop or on a mobile phone. For the reasons we said, up to 60% of your traffic or more, it's always getting more and more mobile based, is going to be on mobile phones. So yeah, really important to consider that as well.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for that, Alfie. I hear one of the things you're really saying is that in the end, your website just needs to be like simple and clear, and it needs to work on mobile phones as well as on a desktop computer. I wonder if that's kind of three of the main things that we can take, that all of these kind of fancy features, like you say about like scrolling banners or all that kind of stuff, often ends up as clutter, and people just need to know like who you are, what you do, where you work, and yeah, and then how to get in touch with you. And I know there's a
Yeah.
couple more points on this checklist. I know that we'll be sending this checklist out and that it's something people can refer to. Um, but did you want to walk us through a couple
I
of
can whiz
highlights
through
from
this. I can
these?
whiz
Yeah,
through this in a minute for you. So, yeah, familiar navigation. Don't use terms that people don't understand. So, if you offer services, don't call them things we offer or something like that. Use clear language that people understand. Use accessible, warm language. Usually in care, you're talking as if you would talk to a friend. You're a friend giving advice to a friend. It's supporting a family. And make sure you've got clear call to actions, not just on the homepage, but everywhere. You want a testimonial per service. So if you've got different service offerings, if you've got specifically dementia care that you offer, have a testimonial about dementia care, about what you offer and how someone that you've helped. You can use case studies to support that as well. The CQC have a widget you can just pop in there as well that also builds trust to just show, look, this is our rating, this is where we're covered by the CQC. You want to write areas that you cover. So if you're in Huddersfield and you work in Huddersfield and surrounding areas, write that at the top and make that really clear. That not only is that good for SEO, as I'm sure they covered last week, but that will also reassure your clients, oh, they're in the right place, they're in Huddersfield. If you don't cover areas outside of that, they're not going to be sure. And then just explaining things like, what does care look like when you start? What are the costs? What help is available? Be the friend to them and explain the process, because for a lot of people it's unknown, they haven't used a care service before and they are trying to work out what that looks like. Help them paint the picture, show them in as much detail as possible, so that when you have the conversation with them on the phone, there's not an atmosphere of confusion and them thinking about being sold to. They're already interested because you've answered their questions, you've overcome some of their objections already on the website by being that friend. Hope that makes sense.
wonderful. Thank you so much for that, Alfie. I can see you also calling out case studies here. As that can just giving people that really like personal touch of like, hey, here's someone who's actually used the service and here's how they found it. I remember we talked last week loads about the importance of Google reviews, was something that Lewis, our growth lead, was talking about. And for anyone watching that episode, if you didn't catch that episode, it's all available on our YouTube. I'll send you the link to that as well. Talking about, and I think this is something that you touch on to later, Alfie, as well, the importance of reviews and the importance of a culture where everyone is thinking about things like getting those reviews through, picking up any like extra tips. But yes, and I think we had one more bit of this checklist. Was there maybe one or two things to really draw out here?
Yeah, I think we've already talked about photography, the look and feel, and it being consistent. You can't always use real photos because you're maybe not at that stage. It takes time. You've got to get sign off. So stock photos, if you're going to use them, make sure they're good. Um, and the site has to load quickly and work. If they don't, again, SEO probably last week covered this. If it's slow, if it loads in more than 2 seconds, then it's not good for SEO. It's not good for the user either. People are used to it loading quickly. You're dealing with potentially a more elderly demographic, so make sure the text sizing works. Make sure it's visible. You've not got white text on a pink background, for example, or a kind of hybrid background where some of the text visible, some of it isn't. And then the other things like having analytics and tracking, the amount of websites that I've seen that don't have any analytics set up is mind-boggling to me, because people have invested all this money in a website and in marketing and they've got no idea who's coming on the website, who's converting. So analytics to set up to see your traffic, and then tracking needs to be set up by whoever is your tech wizard to make sure that your conversions are being tracked. So if somebody comes on your website, fills in a form, clicks the button to call you, that's being tracked so you know if your website's working or not. And it's amazing how many websites don't have that in place.
Mm, that's a really, really good call out. Thank you so much, Alfie. And on exactly that, I mean, coming through, I think, to our final point on kind of are there any kind of extra little bits that you might be able to pick out to achieve exactly that? A website that really does make people like, I'm going to say pick up the phone. It's more like press the button. But yes, I wonder if you could dive into some of these.
Yeah, beautiful. Thanks, Simran. So try and use your own website. So many people don't do this. They set up the website, they leave it, they don't get inquiries or they don't get enough inquiries and they don't know why. Try and use your own website. Do it on desktop and then do it on mobile, and yeah, you'd be surprised how many bugs you discover just by trying to use your own service. And really think about it from the perspective of a family member looking for care for their relative and see what the journey's like. It's really worth doing that. Try and do it with somebody who hasn't seen it before, with a fresh set of eyes. That's really useful. Things like putting a Meet Your Care Manager section on the website will dramatically increase your conversions because you've got a friendly face there. You're removing some of the mystery. It's like, oh, there's a person there. Not all of us like having our photos online and having video and that kind of thing, but if you can get used to it, that's really, really useful. It's just important. And we talked about I'll come to that about marketing culture, but yeah, add your WhatsApp chat. We talked about the integration you can have with your website, so people just come and they click and they go through to your WhatsApp directly. Um, One thing to say about care marketing is it is hyper local. What does that mean? It means that we're talking about a very small geographic area, usually where we're targeting, where people will recommend people based on who they know. If you're running a care home, then you're in a very strict geographic location, but also for home care businesses, it's really, really local to the area. So if you can showcase local knowledge, great. There's also hyper-local ways to market, like Facebook groups for the local area. If you live in a small town and there's a Facebook group for that small town, you can answer questions related to care, you can showcase your knowledge, you can drop in a guide to, how to find care if you're in Andover, how to find care in Andover, for example. You've dropped the guide in there, people will comment, there's a conversation that happens. So like Facebook, Nextdoor, and other online forums as well. But yeah, you want your team also to be really thinking about marketing. So it's not something that usually a bedraggled somebody that's been given all the job of the marketing, who's usually also doing HR and recruitment and doesn't know about digital. It's not just the job of one person. It is everybody's job to think about marketing. And we have to get over the idea that marketing is this kind of dirty word or something that is kind of a little bit witchcraft or wizardcraft. It's something everyone can do. If you've been on a date, if you've had to apply for a job, you know how to market yourself. Otherwise, you wouldn't have a job. You wouldn't, because you've got to know how to do these things. So it's not something mystical or magical. Everyone can do it, and the idea is to get everybody involved so we understand that marketing has a part to play in the ecosystem of the organization. And if people say thank you to us and say thank you so much for what you did, I really, you looked after my mum so well, it meant such a difference to her life. It's a weird thing to then try and get in unless you've got the culture of, "Ah, thanks, we really appreciate that." One of the best ways that you can thank us is to leave us a review so that other people know about what we do, and we can share the word about what we're trying to achieve here.
I think
So it
that's
doesn't
such a
necessarily easily fit into the conversation, but it's worth trying to get in there, because it makes such a difference, and it's yeah,
yeah,
visibility.
that's such a wonderful thing to do. I think to reframe things a little bit from like marketing isn't this kind of, yeah, as you say, like dirty word. It's saying like people want to help you. They want to get the word out. And all you're doing is kind of like just giving people somewhere to put that energy and somewhere to for them to share the things they're already going to share, maybe with like a friend or a friend of a friend if someone calls them, just kind of like giving them an opportunity to yeah to support you in just the same way that you might have supported them or their family. I'm just really conscious of time, and I can see there's one or two questions in the chat. So what I might do is jump us straight into that Q&A section. Just one question from the chat, actually. Let's flash this up. Could you tell us a little bit more, Alfie? What do you think about scrolling photos, and what exactly is it that I think it is you don't like about them so much?
Yeah, scrolling banners, scrolling photos. I just wouldn't. I just really wouldn't. There's even a scrolling logo bit on our website that I don't want there. It just happened like that, and I was too busy to kind of oversee it. But anything that takes away um, power from the user, anything that moves without the user clicking or moving, I would avoid, unless it's an ambient video, which is there just to set the tone, which is not content, which is going to disappear. It's just background. So the same thing applies for photos as text, really. It just is not great user experience. There's probably exceptions to that rule, but I think in general for the care sector specifically, I wouldn't bother.
Oh, yes, I see. So you're sort of saying like, hey, you want the user, you want the person on the page to have control over what they can see and what they can't see. And if something's kind of scrolling without their control, I think we all know how irritating it could be sometimes when you're on a website and you're just about to click on something because it's exactly what you need, and then it just scrolls away without you. And you think, excuse me. I thought I was the person operating this website. Of course. Well, do you know, that brings us to time. I think we've crammed so much really, really valuable stuff in. So all that remains for us to say is just keep an eye out for the full recording in your inbox with that full checklist and some extra resources as well. Do have a look at the rest of the series, our episode from 2 weeks ago, and our one coming up next as well. And finally, if there's any way that Birdie or Kahoot can help you, please do reach out. We've put Birdie's website up there, and you can also find Kahoot at, I believe it is kahootmarketing.com. And we'll make sure to send that link through to you as well, of course. One final little shout out to what that episode is next week with Lottie on setting the right rates on your site and communicating your value, basically working out how much to charge and then finding ways to justify that based on the people who run that massive marketplace that is Lottie. So they have all the data and they have all the tips on that. And other than that, thank you so much, everybody, and goodbye. Have a wonderful rest of your week.